The Muqaddimah Chapter 6 Part 5. 28. The Science of the Secrets of Letters. At the present time, this science is called semi-letter magic. 805. The word was transferred from talismans to this science and used in this conventional meaning in the technical terminology of Sufi practitioners of magic. Thus, a general, magical, term came to be used for some particular aspect of magic. This science originated in Islam after some time 806 of its existence had passed. When the extremist Sufis appeared, they turned to the removal of the veil of sense perception, produced wonders, and were active in the world of the elements. At that time, they wrote systematic works on Sufism and Sufi terminology. They believed in the gradual descent of existence from the One. They believed that verbal perfection consists in helping the spirits of the spheres and the stars, through words. The natures and secrets of the letters are alive in the words, while the words, in turn, are correspondingly alive in the created things. The created things have been moving in the different stages of creation, and telling its secrets since the first creation. These Sufi beliefs caused the science of the secrets of the letters to originate. It is a subdivision of the science of semi-letter magic. It is an unfathomable subject with innumerable problems. Al-Bistimai, 807 Ibn al-Arabi, and others in their wake wrote numerous works on it. These authors assume that the result and fruit of letter magic is that the divine souls are active in the world of nature by means of the beautiful names of God and the divine expressions that originate from the letters comprising the secrets that are alive in the created things. The authorities on letter magic then differed as to the secret of the magic activity lying in the letters. Some of them assumed that it was due to inherent temper. They divided the letters into 4 groups corresponding to the elements. Each nature, element, had its own group of letters. Through this group of letters, it can be active actively and passively. A technical procedure, which the authorities on letter magic call breaking down, Taksir, 808 classifies the letters as the elements are classified, as fiery, airy, watery, and earthy. The Aleph is fiery, B airy, J watery, and D earthy. Then, it starts again with the next letter, and so on, through the whole alphabet and the sequence of the elements. Thus, 7 letters are fiery, namely, Aleph, H, T, M, F, S, and DH. 7 are airy, namely, B, W, Y, N, D, T, and X. 7 are watery, namely, J, X, K, S, Q, TH, and GH. And 7 are earthy, namely, D, H, L, N, R, KH, and SH. 809. The fiery letters serve to repel cold diseases and to increase the power of heat wherever desired, either in the sensual, physical, or in the astrological sense. Thus, for instance, one may want to increase the power of Mars for warfare, the killing of enemies, and aggressiveness. In the same way, the watery letters serve to repel hot diseases, such as fevers and others, and to increase the cold powers, wherever desired, either in the sensual, physical, sense or in the astrological sense. Thus, for instance, one may want to increase the power of the moon, and so on. Other authorities on letter magic assumed that the secret of the magic activity that lies in the letters was their numerical proportion. The letters of the alphabet indicate numerical values which by convention and nature are generally accepted to be inherent in them. Thus, there exists a relationship between the letters themselves as a result of the relationship of their numerical values. For instance, there is a relationship between B, K, and R, because all 3 of them indicate 2 in its different positions. The letter, B indicates 2 in the units, K indicates 2 in the tens, 20, and R indicates 2 in the hundreds, 200. Or, there is a special relationship between the letters mentioned and D, M, and T. The latter group of letters indicates 4, and the proportion of 4 to 2 is that of 2 to 1. Then, there are magic squares for words as there are for numbers. Each group of letters has its particular kind of magic square which fits it in view either of the numerical value of the figure 810 or of the numerical value of the letters. Magic activity based on letter magic thus merges with that based on number magic, because there exists a relationship between letters and numbers. The real significance of the relationship existing between letters and natural humors and between letters and numbers is difficult to understand. It is not a matter of science or reasoning. According to the authorities on letter magic, it is based on mystical experience and the removal of the veil. Al-Bistimai said, one should not think that one can get at the secret of the letters with the help of logical reasoning. One gets to it with the help of vision and divine aid. The fact that it is possible to be active in the world of nature with the help of the letters and the words composed of them, and that the created things can be influenced in this way, cannot be denied. It is confirmed by continuous tradition on the authority of many practitioners of letter magic. It has been thought that this activity and the activity of people who work with talismans are one and the same thing. This is not so. The people who work with talismans have made it clear that the influence of a talisman actually comes from spiritual powers derived from the substance of force. These powers exercise a powerful and forceful activity upon the things for which the talisman is composed, with the help of spherical secrets, numerical proportions, and vapors that attract the spirituality of the talisman and are mentally enclosed in it. The result is that the high natures come to be tied to the low ones. Talismans, they think, are like a ferment composed of and including earthy, airy, watery, and fiery elements. Such ferment is instrumental in transforming and changing anything into which it might get, into its own essence and in turning it into its own form. The elixir 811 for metals, likewise, is a ferment that by transformation turns the mineral in which it is alive into itself. Therefore, it has been said that the subject of alchemy is body, substance, in body, substance, because all parts of an elixir are corporeal substances. The subject of talismans, on the other hand, is spirit in body, substance, 812 because talismans tie the high natures to the low natures. The low natures are bodies, substances, while the high natures are spiritualities 813. One should realize that all magic activity in the world of nature comes from the human soul and the human mind, because the human soul essentially encompasses and governs nature. Consequently, the real difference between the activity of people who work with talismans and people who work with words is as follows. The activity of people who work with talismans consists in bringing down the spirituality of the spheres and tying it down with the help of pictures or numerical proportions. The result is a kind of composition that, through its nature, affects a transformation and change comparable to those effected by a ferment in the thing into which it gets. The activity of people who work with words, on the other hand, is the effect of the divine light and the support of the Lord which they obtain through exertion and the removal of the veil. Thus, nature is forced to work for them, and does so willingly with no attempt at disobedience. Their activity needs no support from the spherical powers or anything else, because the support it has is of a higher order than all that. People who work with talismans, therefore, need only a little exercise to give the soul the power to bring down the spirituality of the spheres. Devotions and exercises certainly play a very insignificant role in it. The opposite is the case with people who work with words. Their exercise is the most extensive that can be. It is not for the purpose of being active in the existing things, since that is a veil, standing between them and their real task. Such activity comes to them accidentally, as an act of divine grace. 8:14 A person who works with words may have no knowledge of the secrets of God and the realities of divinity, which is the result of vision and the removal of the veil. He may restrict himself to the various relationships between words and the natures of letters and expressions, and he may become, magically, active with them in this capacity, and that is what people who practice letter magic are commonly supposed to do. But then, there is no difference between such a person and the people who work with talismans. In fact, a person who works with talismans is more reliable than he, because he has recourse to scientific natural principles and orderly norms. A person who works with the secrets of words but is not sincere in his devotion. 815 and, in addition, has no technical norms of evidence on which he may rely and, therefore, lacks the removal of the veil that would show him the realities of expressions and the influence of relationships, is in a weaker position than a person who works with talismans. The person who works with words may mingle the powers of expressions and words with the powers of the stars. He may then set certain times for mentioning the beautiful names of God or the magic squares composed of them, or, indeed, any word. 816 These times must be under the propitious influence of the star. 817 That is related to a particular word. That was done, for instance, by Al-Bistimai in his book entitled Al-Innate. 818 The relationship between star and magic word is assumed to come from the nubilus, presence. 819 Which is the purgatory station, Bartsakhaya, of verbal perfection, and which particularizes itself in the realities in accordance with the relationship they have to the magic words. They think that those expressions. 820 depend on vision to be established. If a person who works with words lacks vision but knows about that relationship through tradition, his actions correspond to those of the person who works with talismans. Indeed, as we have stated, the latter is more reliable than he. In the same way, the person who works with talismans may mingle his actions and the powers of the stars which govern them, with the powers of prayers composed of special expressions indicating a relationship between those expressions and the stars. In his case, however, the relationship of expressions is not, as in the case of people who work with words, the result of direct observation in a state of vision. It is merely based upon the general, basic requirement of the magic approach, namely, that the stars share in all the substances, accidents, essences, and ideas. 821 Existing in the world of created things. Letters and words belong to the things that exist in it. Thus, each star has its particular share in them. On this basis, magical practitioners construct strange and disapproved theories. Namely, they divide the saras and verses of the Quran in this manner. That was what Maslama al-Majriti, for instance, did in the Gaya. It is also obvious from Al-Bistimai's attitude in the Innate that he takes this method into consideration. A critical study of the Innate and of the prayers the work contains and their distribution among the hours of the 7 stars, as well as a look at the Gaya and a critical study of the prayers. Ki Yamat, of the stars contained in it. 822, Ki Yamat of the stars is the name they give to the prayers that belong to each individual star, that is, the prayer performed, Yukmu biha, for it, will show that this procedure belongs to the substance of these works on letter magic, or that the relationship that came about in the original creation and in the purgatory, Bartsak, of knowledge made all that necessary. And you were given but little knowledge. 823. One cannot deny the actual existence of all the sciences declared illegal by the religious law. It is definite that sorcery is true, although it is forbidden. But we are satisfied with the knowledge God taught us. A few remarks may help to make things clear. 824. Letter magic clearly is a kind of sorcery and, as such, attainable through various exercises which are legal according to the religious law. This comes about as follows. We have mentioned before 825 that two kinds of human beings are active in the world of created beings. 826 prophets are active, with the help of the divine power which God gave them by nature. Sorcerers are active, with the help of the psychic power which is innate in them. Saints may be active by acquiring the ability to be active through faith, al-kalima al-imaniyat. It is a result of detachment from the sensibilia. They do not have it intentionally. It comes to them spontaneously. If it happens to mighty saints, they avoid it and take refuge in God against it and consider it a temptation. 827 There is, for instance, the story of Abu Yazid Al-Bistimai 828 One evening, when he reached the bank of the Tigris, he was in a hurry. 829 The two banks of the river came together, so that he would have been able to cross right over, but Abu Yazid invoked God's protection and said, "I will not sell my share in God for a farthing, Adnak." So, he boarded a boat and crossed over with the ferryman. An innate ability for sorcery requires exercise, in order to be capable of transformation from potentiality into actuality. Some magical ability, which is not innate, may be acquired, but such acquired magical ability is inferior to innate magical ability. One would, in any case, have to exercise to acquire magical ability, as one does on behalf of innate magical ability. The procedure of such magical exercise is well known. Its various kinds and the ways in which it is executed 830 are mentioned by Maslama al-Majriti in the Kitab al-Gaya and by Jabir b. Hayyan in his treatises, as well as by others. They are employed by many people who want to acquire magical ability and learn its norms and the conditions governing it. However, 831 This magical exercise of early practitioners is full of matters of unbelief. For instance, it includes devotions directed to the stars and prayers to them, called ki Yamat, 832 for the purpose of attracting their spirituality. It also includes the belief in influences by beings other than God, in that one's actions are tied to magical horoscopes and the mutual aspects of the stars in the signs of the zodiac, in order to obtain the desired results. Many people who wished to be magically active in the world of existing things were arrested by this fact. They wanted to obtain the ability to be magically active, in a way that would have nothing to do with any involvement in unbelief and the practice of it. They turned their exercise into one that was legal according to the religious law. It consisted of dhikr exercises and prayers, subuate, from the Quran and the prophetic traditions. They learned which of these things were appropriate for their particular need from the aforementioned division of the world with its essences, attributes, and actions according to the influences of the seven stars. In addition, they also selected the days and hours appropriate to the distribution of the influences of the stars. They used this kind of legal exercise as a cover, in order to avoid having anything to do with ordinary sorcery, which is unbelief or calls for unbelief. They kept to a legal kind of devotion because of its general and honest character. That was done, for instance, by Al-Bani in his Kitab al-Anmat and other works of his, and by others. They called this approach letter magic, since they were very eager to avoid the name of sorcery. In fact, however, they fall under the idea of sorcery, even though they have a legal kind of devotion. They are not at all free from the belief in influences by beings other than God. These people also want to be magically active in the world of existing things. That is something forbidden by the lawgiver, Muhammad. The miracles performed by the prophets were performed at God's command. He gave the power to perform them. The miracles of the saints were performed, because by means of the creation 833 of a necessary knowledge, through inspiration or something else, they obtained divine permission to perform them. They did not intend to perform them without permission. Thus, the trickery of the people who practice letter magic should not be trusted. As I have made it clear, letter magic is a subdivision and kind of sorcery. God guides toward the truth through his kindness *. Many people want to be, magically, active but want to avoid having anything to do with any involvement in sorcery and the name and technicalities of sorcery. Therefore, they choose a special exercise consisting of prayers, subuate, and hikra exercises. They are legal according to the religious law, and yet they correspond to magical exercise in the kind of devotion and the expressions used. They choose the time of certain ascendants, as is done by the people, the learned magicians. They refrain from having any harmful intentions in their devotion, so that, in this manner, they may have nothing to do with sorcery. But they are far off the mark in this assumption. Any devotion in the intention of being, magically, active is the very same thing as sorcery. Moreover, if one looks at it carefully, the exercise of these people evokes the idea of magical exercise in view of the expressions used in it, as one finds them in the Yamat and other works of Al-Bistimai. Now, if the assumption is erroneous that this is a legal way of obtaining the ability to be, magically, active, it should be avoided. One should realize that, magical, activity from the very beginning is not legal, and that the great saints keep away from it. The great saints, who practiced it, did so because they had permission, through inspiration or something else. Also, saints are, magically, active through faith, al-kalama al-imaniya, and not through psychic power. This is the true character of letter magic. As one can see, it is a subdivision and kind of sorcery. God guides toward the truth through his kindness. The Zai Raja 834. A branch of the science of letter magic, practiced, among the authorities on letter magic, is the technique of finding out answers from questions by means of connections existing between the letters of the expressions used in the question. They imagine that these connections can form the basis for knowing the future happenings they want to know. Here we have something like puzzles and trick problems 835. There are many discussions of the subject by them. The most comprehensive and most remarkable discussion of it is As-Sapti's Zai Raja of the world. It has been mentioned before. Here, we shall explain what has been said about how to operate it. We shall quote the poem that, it is thought, As-Sapti wrote on the subject 836. Then, we shall give a description of the Zai Raja with its circle 836 and the table written on the verso. Finally, we shall reveal the truth about it. It is nothing supernatural. The indications derived from it result from an agreement in the wording of question and answer. It is just one interesting way among others, and a curious one, for finding out the answer from the question with the help of the technique called the technique of breaking down. 837. We have referred to all this before. We have no authoritative tradition on which we might rely for the correctness of the poem and its attribution to As-Sapti 838. However, we have chosen, for our quotation, what gave the impression of being the best manuscript. This is the poem, 839. There speaks a little Sushan, 840, praising his Lord. Praying for a guide who was God's messenger to mankind, namely, Muhammad, who was sent as a prophet, the seal of the prophets. And expressing his satisfaction 841 with the men around him and those who followed them. Behold, this is the Zai Raja of the world which you sing. See revealed through your plural senses, and through the intellect. Whoever knows how to compose, the Zai Raja, will know his body, and will obtain laws given from on high. Whoever knows how to tie it down, will obtain power, and be noted for having obtained the fear of God and everything. 842 He is seen taking on reality in the divine world. This is the station of those who are perfected through dhikr exercises. These are the secrets that you have to keep concealed. Set them up in circles and balance them with H and with T, which has a throne on which it is engraved. In poetry and prose, or which one sees arranged as a table. Set up circles corresponding to the relationship of their spheres and draw stars for their highest degrees. Come out for its strings, chords, and draw letters for them, and repeat the same letters on the border of those that are free. Set up the shape of their zur, 843, and make its houses. And verify with a BAM wherever their light is apparent. Present sciences as an engineer for the natures, elements, and an established knowledge of figurations and the quadrants. Work with music and the knowledge of their 844 letters. And the knowledge of an instrument. And verify and bring about and make circles and set down their letters in the right relationship. Set free their world and list the zones in a table. We have an Emir 845 who desires bougie for a Zenata dynasty, which has appeared and which has manifestly seized power. And a region of Spain, then. 846. The Banu Nasr came, and their victory followed. Rulers, knights, and people of wisdom. If you wish, write them down. Their region is empty. A Mahdi of the Almohads who rule in Tunis, rulers for an east set down in magic squares, 847 cast a spell over the region, and believe. If you wish, represent it in Latin without linguistic error, and Alfonso and Barcelona. R is the letter for it. Their franc is DH 848 and is perfected with T. Rulers of Kainawa. 849 They have pointed to their 850 Quetzales, and the Arabs, our people, have been weakened. Abyssinian India and Sind, Western India, then Hermes. And Tatar Persians, and what beyond them. Their Byzantine emperor is Ah. Their Persian, Yazdjard, belongs to K. Their Copt was written with a long L, and Abbas, all of them noble and venerable. But, they are, a Turk when the magical activity ceases. If you want to know the rulers exactly and to find them out, seal fields, then bring them into relation and list them in a table, according to the norm and science of the letters, and the knowledge of their nature, and set up the whole of it. Whoever knows the sciences will know our science. He will know the secrets of existence and become perfect. He, then, has firmly rooted knowledge and knows his Lord. And has a knowledge of predictions which is broken down through HM. And whenever there comes a name, and the meter prefers it 851, a wise man will definitely decide that he must be killed. Letters will come to you. Then, try to pick them. The letters of Sibawe will come to you disconnected. Then, strengthen with transformations and confront and exchange. With your precious warble shake the parts. Select a star, rise. Figure out its signs. Reverse its route. Straighten it out with the cycle. Someone will perceive those things. He will achieve his purpose. And be given their letters in whose arrangement the evidence lies. If it is lucky and the stars are lucky, it should suffice you to have royal authority. And to have reached the dim star, D, in Ursa Major on high. The melody of their D with its bridled BAM. Thus, sound harmonic chimes, and you will find the right place in it, the strings of their zur. To the H belongs their BAM. And their Mathna. The Mathlath has appeared through its J. Make entries with spheres. Straighten things out with a table. Draw ABC and the remaining letters of the alphabet according to their numerical value. And permit the irregularity of the meter that occurs. Something similar has occurred in the prosody of a number of people. A principle of our religion, a principle of our jurisprudence, and some knowledge of grammar, keep and obtain. Bring in the wall. For a large tent in harmony. Praise his name and say, God is great, and there is no God but God, and you will succeed in bringing out verses on any desired object through natural rhyme and a secret from on high. If they are thus brought together, the judgment implied in their number will be acquired, 852 and Dora. And you will bring out verses 20 multiplied by 1000 by nature, O master of the table, will show crafts of multiplication that are perfect. Thus, your wishes will come out right for you, and the world on high will come out right for you. And rhyme with their zur and praise with a beat. Set it up in circles for a zur, and obtain it. Set it up with magic squares and a principle that you prepare from the secrets of their letter, and bring it back in chain form. Signs 853. Discussion of how to discover the relationships and qualities of the weights, 854 the powers of their opposites, the power of the grade which is distinguished according to the relationship to the place of attached mixtures of natures, elements, and the science of medicine, or the craft of alchemy. O student of medicine and of Jabir's science, alchemy, 855. And you who know the extent of the powers in succession, if you want the science of medicine, there must exist a relationship. For the laws of scales, which 856 will hit upon a possible way. Your patient will be cured. The elixir will be right. The soundness of the mixtures of your composition will be apparent. Spiritual medicine. And you want Hoyash 857, signs, and his mind. For Bahram Burgess 858 and 7, who is perfect. For dissolving pains of cold diseases. Make it correct. This way, and make the composition correct, wherever it has been handed down. Signs. Appearances of rays that concern the nativities of rulers and their children. The knowledge of rays cast is difficult. The side of their bows shows itself in a belt. But on a pilgrimage, there is the place where our Imam stands. He appears when the latitude of the stars is straightened out. There are positions whose longitude is made clear. And, also their latitude. By reaching that, he becomes a junction. Places where there is a quartile with its sign in the dejection, their sextile has the trine of the sign of the one that follows. One adds to the quartile. That is its analogy. In certainty, and its root. With the ain, it is made to work. From the relationship of the two quarters combine your rays with as and double it. Its quartile will thus show itself. Signs. This operation here concerns rulers. The operation of the rule is consistent. Nothing more remarkable has ever been seen. The position of rulers. Signs. The zur for every thing, and the complete follower of the root. Signs junction and separation. Signs. The complete necessary line, injunctions. Signs. The establishments of lights. Signs. The answering root. In the operation. Signs the establishment of questions concerning rulers. Signs. The position of children, the position of light. Signs. The position of splendor. Signs. On, being spiritually influenced and divinely guided. O student of the secret of praising, the oneness, of God. With the beautiful names of God 859 you will hit upon a possible way. The rabbis of mankind will obey you with their heart, as well as 860 their chief. It is operated in the sun? You will see all mankind tied to you. If you wish, you will live in the world of existence together with the fear of God and solid religion, or you will be firmly rooted. 861. Like Du En Nun 862 and Al-Junaid 863 together with the secret of an art. I see you clothed in the secret of Bistim 864. You will come into being created in the world on high, as the Indians have said, and the Sufi crowd. The path of the messenger of God sparkles with the truth. No work of a quality similar to that of Gabriel has yet been invented. Your courage is saying, there is no God but God, and your bow is the east where the sun rises. Thursday is the beginning. Sunday appears. On a Friday, too, the same will be done with the names. And on Monday, you will perfect the beautiful names of God. In its T, there is a secret, as well as in its H. At the end of the resurrection, it is followed by a prayer and sincere devotion, with the 7 Mathani 865 being chanted. The junction of the lights of the stars. Signs. In your right hand, there is an iron ring, and a seal, but not in prayer. Make your heart the tablet, to write on the verse of resurrection. Recite and chant it when people are asleep. It is the secret contained in the created beings, there is nothing but it. It is the greatest verse. Therefore, make it accurate and get it. Through it, you will become a pole if you serve well. You will perceive secrets from the world on high. Sorry communicated them, and, after him, Maruf 866 Al-Halaj 867 divulged them and was killed. Ash-Shibli 868 always worked on them, until he went up higher than the ordinary Sufis and was exalted. Therefore, clean your heart eagerly from impurities. Practice dhikr exercises constantly. Fast. Do supererogatory devotions. The secret of the people, the mystics, has been attained only by thorough devotees, who knew the secret of the sciences and were competent. Signs. The position of love, of the inclination of the souls, of exertion, obedience, worship, love, infatuation, annihilation of annihilation, non-being, devotion, observance, and friendship. 869 with permanent physical passivity. Burgess 870 has the magic square for love. The mixture has been prepared with tin or copper which were caused to work. Or with silver. Correct, I have seen it. Your making its lucky position an ascendant is not improper. 871 Try to get through it an increase of light for the moon. Your making its sun ready to accept. 872 is something firmly grounded. Put it to sleep with the incense being aloe wood belonging to their India, and fix an hour. Its prayer is a benefit. Its prayer is for a purpose. Thus, it is caused to work. Its prayer from Taz Aman, which is ornamented, is used, or a prayer for whose composition letters or problems are prepared with hot air. You shall engrave letters with D and its L. That is a magic square which consists of 16 fields. If their indication does not please you, make good its B, and bring them away to 873. That which pleases you. The small remainder of them is summarized. Engrave certain shapes from some of them. Whatever you add, make it proportionate, equal to your action. And the key of Maryam. For the actions of both of them are alike. A call went out, and Al-Bistimai recited her, Maryam's, surah. Let your acting be with support. Search for the proofs of a savage person who was set up for his text. Turn over its 874 houses with 1,000 and more. Inside it, there is a secret. In the search for it, it has become apparent. On the stations for the end, you have the supernatural, a picture from the world on high. You make it find a house. Its clothing is jewelry. Beautiful like Joseph, this one, similar to him, was sent down with. And a chant of reality 875. He is powerful and speaks about the supernatural. He resembles a lute that competes with a nightingale. Burlil 876 went crazy from love of her beauty. When she appeared to Bistim, he was forsaken and died. The love of her was instilled into Junaid and Basri. 877 he neglected his body. The ultimate in praise of the oneness of God is sought. Whoever has God's beautiful names for himself without any relationship, and whoever possesses them, succeeds with wisdom, and attains nearness to the neighbors of the world on high. You will be informed about the supernatural. 878 If you render good service, which will show you remarkable things, to him who is a refuge. This is true success. It is goodness that attains it. From those things, there result additions for their interpretation which follows. Testament, final statement, faith, Islam, prohibition, and suitability. This is our poem. 90 is its number. And the additional verses for introduction and table. I am surprised by verses whose number is 90, which produce more verses whose complete number is not apparent. Whosoever understands the secret, let him understand himself, and let him understand an ambiguous commentary which is difficult, forbidden and lawful, in order to show our secret to people, even if they are a select group and have the suitable qualification. If you want people suitable for it, place them under a strong oath. Maltreat them. 879 With manliness and extended religiosity. Perhaps you will be saved, as well as the one who hears their secret, from deciding to divulge it, and you will become a chief on high. A son of Abbas keeps his secret hidden. Thus, he obtained much happiness, and high rank followed him. The messenger of God rose among the people as preacher. The spirits have boarded bodies to manifest themselves, and have applied themselves, in order to kill them, by prolonged knocking at the high world. Our non-existence becomes non-existent, and we put on the garment of existence in succession. Our rhyming is completed. Pray, our God, for the seal of the messengers, a prayer that will effect exaltation. Pray, O God of the throne, glorious and exalted, for a Lord who ruled and perfected mankind. Muhammad, the guide, the intercessor, our leader. And pray for the men around him, the noble, exalted people. A rank that results from friendship. Signs. The correct determination of sun and moon and the stars for every desired date. Signs. The Zai-Raja is completed. The procedure of finding answers from questions through the Zai-Raja of the world with the help of the might of God. 880. A question may have 360 answers, according to the degrees of the firmament. The answers to one question under a given ascendant differ in accordance with different questions, forming part of the question asked, which are referred to the letters of the chords of the Zai-Raja and, in accordance with, the operation applied to finding out the letters from the verse of the poem. 881 Note, the letters of the chords and the table are composed of three basic types. 1. Arabic letters, which are taken at their face value, as numerals. 2. Gubar letters. 882 They are treated differently. Some are taken at their face value, when there are no more than 4 cycles. 883 If there are more than 4, they are used as tens as well as hundreds, as required by the operation, as we shall explain. 3. Zamam letters. They are treated in the same way, as Gubar letters. However, the Zamam letters offer another possibility. One may be used as 1010, as 10,000, and they may be used, in the proportion of 5 to 1, in relation to the Arabic letters. One may place in each field of the table 3 letters of this type and 2 of the other type. Empty fields may be left in the table. If there are more than 4 basic cycles, the empty fields are counted in vertically. If there are no more than 4, only the filled fields are counted. The operation with the question requires 7 principles. 1. The number of the letters of the chords. 2. The retention of their cycles after division by 12. There are always 8 cycles in the complete one, and 6 in the incomplete one. 3. The knowledge of the degree of the ascendant. 4. The ruler of the sign of the zodiac. 5. The greatest principal cycle, which is always 1. 6. The result of adding the ascendant to the principal cycle. And 7. The result of multiplying ascendant plus cycle by the ruler of the sign of the zodiac, and 8. 884 of the ruler of the sign of the zodiac, added to the ascendant. The whole operation takes place in 3 cycles multiplied by 4, thus making 12 cycles. The relationship of these 3 cycles, which are 885 each growth having a beginning. Then, they are multiplied as quadruple cycles as well as triple cycles. Then, they may be the result of 6 multiplied by 2, and thus have another growth. This is something apparent in the operation. These cycles are followed by results. They are in the cycles. There may be 1 result, or more than 1, up to 6. Now, to begin with, let us assume that someone asks, is the Ziyai-Raja a modern or an ancient science? 886 The ascendant is in the first degree of Sagittarius. 887 Thus, we place the letters of the chord of the beginning of Sagittarius and the corresponding chord of the beginning of Gemini and, in the third place, the chord of the beginning of Aquarius up to the limit of the center. We add to it the letters of the questions. We look at the number of the letters. The smallest number there can be is 88, 888 and the largest 96. This is the total of a complete cycle. Our question consists of 93 letters 889. If the question contained more than 96 letters, it would be shortened by 890 dropping all 12 cycles. One keeps what comes out from them and what remains 891 in our question, there are 7 cycles. The remainder is 9892. They are set down among the letters, as long as the ascendant has not reached 12 degrees. If it has reached 12 degrees, no number or cycle is set down for them. But their numbers are again set down, when the ascendant has reached more than 24 degrees in the third decan 893. The ascendant is then set down as 1, the ruler of the ascendant, the sign of the zodiac, as 4, and the greatest cycle as 1. The total of ascendant and cycle is added up, and, in this question, makes 2. This total is multiplied by the ruler of the sign. This is 8. The ruler is added to the ascendant. This is 5. These are the 7 principles. The result of multiplying the ascendant and the greatest cycle by the ruler of Sagittarius, when it is less than 12, is entered at the side of 8 from the bottom of the table upward. When it is more than 12, it is divided in cycles. The remainder is entered at the side of 8. A mark is put upon the end of the number. The 5 that is the result of the addition of ruler and ascendant is what is entered 894 on the side of the uppermost large surface of the table. One counts, consecutively, groups of 5 cycles and keeps them until the number stops opposite the fields of the table that are filled. If it stops opposite one of the empty fields of the table, one should not pay any attention and go on with the cycles, until one reaches one of 4 letters, namely, Aleph, B, J, or Z. In our operation, the number falls upon Aleph and leaves 3 cycles behind. Thus, we multiply 3 by 3, which gives 9. That is the number of the first cycle. This must be set down. The total between the vertical and long sides must be added up. Then it will be in the field of 8. The number in the first cycle, which is 9, must be entered in the front, recto, of the table adjacent to the field in which the two are brought together, going towards the left, which is the field of 8. It thus falls upon the letter lam aleph, but no composite letter ever comes out of it. It thus is just the letter T. 400 in Zamam letters 895. A mark is put on it, after removing it, indicating that it belongs to the verse of the poem. 896. Then, one adds up the numbers of the cycle of the ruler. One gets 13, which is entered among the letters of the chords. One sets down the letter upon which the number falls and puts a mark upon it, indicating that it belongs to the verse of the poem. This rule shows how much the letters circulate according to the natural order. This is as follows. One adds the letter of the first cycle, which is 9, to the ruler of the sign of the zodiac, which is 4. Thus, one gets 13. This is doubled. Thus, one gets 26. From this, one subtracts the degree of the ascendant, which, in this particular question, is 1. Thus, there remains 25. Accordingly, the first order of the letter is 25, then 23 twice, then 22 twice, according to that subtraction, until the procedure reaches 1 at the end of the rhymed verse. 897. One does not stop at 24, because the 1, which would make 24 out of 25, had originally been subtracted. Then, one takes the second cycle and adds the letters of the first cycle to the 8 resulting from the multiplication of ascendant and cycle by the ruler. This gives 17. The remainder is 5. Thus, one goes up 5 on the side of 8 from where one had stopped in the first cycle. One puts a mark on that place. One enters 17 on the front, recto, of the table, and then 5. One does not count empty fields. The cycle is that of tens. We find the letter th, 500, but it counts the same as n, because our cycle represents the tens. Thus, 500 is counted as 50, because its cycle is 17. If it had been 27, it would have been in the hundreds. Thus, one sets down an n. Then, one enters 5, also from the beginning, and notes what number of the surface it confronts. It is found to be 1. One reverses the number 1. It falls upon 5. One adds the 1 of the surface to 5, and gets 6. One sets down AW and marks it with 4, as belonging to the verse of the poem. One adds them to the 8 which was the result of the multiplication of ascendant and cycle by the ruler. Thus, one gets 12. The remainder of the second cycle, namely 5, is added to 12. Thus, one gets 17. That is something that belongs to the second cycle. Thus, we enter 17 among the letters of the chords. The number falls upon 1. Thus, one sets down Aleph and puts a mark upon it, as belonging to the verse of the poem. Of the letters of the chords, one drops 3, the number of the result of the second cycle. Then, one makes the third cycle. One adds 5 to 8 and gets 13. The remainder is 1. One moves the cycle at the side of 8 by 1. One enters 13 into the verse of the poem. One takes the letter upon which the number falls. It is Q. A mark is put upon it. 13 is entered among the letters of the chords. One sets down what comes out. It is S. A mark is put upon it, as belonging to the verse of the poem. Then, the one which is the remainder of the cycle of 13 is entered next to the resulting S. One takes the chord next to the letters. It is B. It is set down, and a mark, indicating that it belongs to the verse of the poem is put upon it. This is called the leaning cycle. Its scale is correct. This is as follows. 1 doubles 13 and adds to it the 1 which remains of the cycle. Thus, 1 gets 27. This is the letter B, which is derived from the chords, as belonging to the verse of the poem. 13 is entered at the front part of the table. One notes what part of the surface confronts it. One doubles it and adds to it the 1 which is the remainder of 13. This is the letter J. The total, thus, is 7. This is the letter Z. We set it down and put a mark upon it, indicating that it belongs to the verse of the poem. The scale of it is that 1 doubles 7 and adds to it the 1 which is the remainder of 13. Thus, 1 gets 15. It is the 15th of the verse of the poem. This is the end of the triple cycles. Then, 1 makes the fourth cycle. It has the number 9, obtained by adding the remainder of the previous cycle. 1 then multiplies ascendant and cycle by the ruler. This cycle ends the operation in the first field of the quadruple cycles. Then, 1 picks 2 letters from the chords, goes up 9 on the side of 8, and enters 9 from the cycle of the letter which was taken last from the verse of the poem. The 9th is the letter R. It is set down, and a mark is put upon it. Then, 9 is entered on the front, recto, of the table, and 1 notes what letter of the surface faces it. It is J. 1 reverses the number 1. That is Aleph. This is the second after the letter R, belonging to the verse of the poem. It is set down, and a mark is put upon it. 1 counts 9, starting next to the second. It again is an Aleph. It is set down, and a mark is put upon it. Then, 1 picks a letter from the chords and doubles 9. This gives 18. 1 enters it among the letters of the chords and comes to a stop at the letter R. It is set down and marked with 8 and 4, indicating that it belongs to the verse of the poem. Then, 1 enters 18 among the letters of the chords and comes to a stop at the letter S. It is put down and marked with 2. 1 adds 2 to 9, which is 11, and enters 11 on the front, recto, of the table. It is confronted by an Aleph from the surface. It is set down and marked with 6. Then, 1 makes the fifth cycle. Its number is 17. The remainder is 5. 1 goes up 5 on the side of 8. 1 picks 2 letters from the chords. 1 doubles 5 and adds the result to 17, the number of its cycle. The total is 27. It is entered among the letters of the chords. It falls upon T. It is set down and marked with 32. 1 subtracts the 2 which is at the base of 32, 898 from 17. The remainder is 15. 1 enters it among the letters of the chords and comes to a stop at Q. It is set down and marked with 26. On the front part of the table 1 enters 26. 1 comes to a stop at 2 in Gubar letters. That is the letter B. It is entered and marked with 54. Then, 1 picks 2 letters from the chords and makes the sixth cycle. Its number is 13. The remainder is 1. Thus, it becomes clear that the cycle of order, rhyming, belongs to 25. The cycles are 90, 5, 17, 5, 13, and 1. 1 multiplies 5 by 5 which gives 25. This is the cycle in the order of the verse. 1 removes the cycle on the side of 8 by 1. But, as we have mentioned before, 13 is not entered in the verse of the poem, because it is a second cycle of a second compositional growth. But we add to 1 the 4 that belongs to the 54 which led to B, as belonging to the verse of the poem. This gives 5. 1 adds 5 to the 13 that belongs to the cycle, and gets 18. 1 enters it on the front, recto, of the table and takes the letter of the surface that confronts it. It is Aleph. It is set down and marked with 12, as belonging to the verse of the poem. One picks 2 letters from the chords. At this point, one looks at the letters of the question. The letters that have come out in the preceding operation are paired with the verse of the poem, beginning at the end. One marks them with the letters of the question, so that it enters numerically into the verse of the poem. The same is done with every letter that comes out hereafter, in correspondence with the letters of the question. All the letters coming out are paired with the verse of the poem, beginning at the end, and a mark is put on them. Then, one adds to 18 the units with which one has marked the letter Aleph. They come to 2. Thus, one gets a total of 20. One enters it among the letters of the chords and comes to a stop at the letter R. It is set down and marked with 96, as belonging to the verse of the poem. This is the end of the cycle with regard to chord letters. Then, one picks 2 letters from the chords and makes the 7th cycle. It is the beginning of the second of the 2 inventions. This cycle contains the number 9. One adds 1 to it. Thus, one gets 10,899 for the second growth. This one is added later on to 12 cycles, if it belongs to that proportion, or it is taken away from the principal cycle. Thus, one gets a total of 10. One goes up on the side of 98, enters 10 on the front, recto, of the table, and gets thus to stop at 500. It is, however, counted only as 50, n. It is to be doubled. Thus, it is Q. It is set down and marked with 52, as belonging to the verse of the poem. 2 is dropped from 52, and the 9 which belongs to the cycle is dropped. The remainder is 41. One enters it among the letters of the chords and thus comes to a stop at 1, which is set down. One also enters 41 in the verse of the poem and thus finds 1. This is the scale of the second growth. It is marked with 2 signs, as belonging to the verse of the poem, 1, which is put upon the last aleph of the scale, and another upon the first aleph. The second is 24. Then, one picks 2 letters from the chords and makes the 8th cycle. Its number is 17. The remainder is 5. One enters it on the side of 58, enters 5 in the verse of the poem, and thus comes to a stop at Ain, 70. It is set down, and a mark is put upon it. 5 is entered in the table. One takes the number of the surface confronting it. It is 1. It is set down and marked with 48, as belonging to 899a the verse. One drops 1 from 48 for the second base and adds to it the 5 of the cycle. The total is 52. That is entered on the front, recto, of the table. One thus comes to a stop at the gubar letter 2. It is in the order of hundreds, because it should be a larger number. Thus, it is counted as 200, which is the letter R. 900. It is set down and marked with 24, as belonging to the verse of the poem. Having reached 96, the whole thing starts from the beginning, which is 24. One adds the 5 of the cycle to 24 and drops 1. The total is 28. One enters half of it in the verse of the poem and thus comes to a stop at 8. Thus, H is set down, and a mark is put upon it. One makes the 9th cycle. Its number is 13. The remainder is 1. One goes up 1 on the side of 8. Here the operation does not follow the same procedure as in the 6th cycle, because the number should be many times larger. Also, the cycle belongs to the second growth and is the beginning of the third of the quadruple arrangement of the signs of the zodiac and the end of the third-fourth of the triple arrangement. Thus, one multiplies the 13 of the cycle by the 4, that is, the number of the preceding triple arrangement of the signs of the zodiac. The total is 52. One enters it on the front, recto, of the table and thus comes to a stop at the Gubar letter 2. However, it is in the hundreds, having gone beyond the units and tens. Therefore, it is set down as 200, r, and marked with 48, as belonging to the verse of the poem. One adds the 1 of the base to the 13 of the cycle, enters 14 in the verse of the poem, and thus comes to a stop at h. It is marked with 28. 7 is subtracted from 14. There remains 7. Then, one picks 2 letters from the chords. One enters 7 and thus comes to a stop at the letter L. It is set down, and a mark, indicating that it belongs to the verse is put on it. Then, one makes the 10th cycle. Its number is 9. It is the beginning of the 4th triple arrangement. One goes up 9 on the side of 8. There is an empty field. One goes up another 9 and gets into the 7th field from the beginning. One multiplies 9 by 4, because we have gone up twice 9, so that 9 was only multiplied by 2. One enters 36 in the table and thus comes to a stop at the Zamam letter 4. It should be in the tens, but we take is as a unit, because there are too few cycles. Thus, the letter D is set down. If one adds the 1 of the base to 36, its limit belongs to the verse of the poem. A mark is put upon it. If one had entered on the front, recto, of the table 9 and nothing else, without multiplication, one would have come to a stop at 8. Thus, one divides 48 by 12. 901 the remainder is 4. This is what one wants. If one had entered 18, which is 9 multiplied by 2, on the front, recto, of the table, one would have come to a stop at the Zamam letter 1, which belongs to the tens. One subtracts 2, which was used to double the 9. The remainder is 8, half of which is 4. Again, this is what one looks for. If, by multiplying 9 by 3, one were to enter 27 on the front, recto, of the table, one would come to a stop at the Zamam letter 10. The operation is the same. Then, 9 is entered into the verse of the poem. The letter, which comes out is set down. It is Aleph. Then, one multiplies 9 with the 3 which is the component of the previous 9, drops 1, and enters 26 in the front, recto, of the table. The number that comes out, 200, is set down with the letter R. It is marked with 96, as belonging to the verse of the poem. Then, one picks 2 letters from the chords and makes the 11th cycle. It has the number 17. The remainder is 5. One goes up 5 on the side of 8, corresponding to what had been undertaken in the first cycle. One enters 4. 902 on the front, recto, of the table and comes to a stop at an empty field. One takes the number of the surface which confronts it. It is 1. Thus, one enters 1 into the verse of the poem. This is Rs 903. It is set down and marked with 4. If we had come to a stop at a filled field of the table, we would have set down the 1 as 3. 1 doubles 17, drops the 1, and adds 4. Thus, one gets 37. One enters it in the chords and comes to a stop at H 904. It is entered and marked with 5. One doubles 5, enters 10 into the verse, and thus comes to a stop at L. It is set down and marked with 20. Then, one picks 2 letters from the chords and makes the 12th cycle. It has the number 13. The remainder is 1. One goes up 1 on the side of 8. This cycle is the last cycle, the end of the 2 inventions, the end of the 3 quadruple arrangements, and the end of the 4 triple arrangements. The 1 on the front, recto, of the table falls upon the Zamam letter 8, which is just 8 units. The only number we have in the cycles is 1. Were there more than a 4 in the quadruple arrangement, of the 12, or more than a 3 in the triple arrangement of the 12, there would be H, 8. But it is just D. 4. Therefore, it is set down and marked with 74, as belonging to the verse of the poem. Then, one notes which number from the surface corresponds to it. It is 5. The 5 which belongs to the base is added to it. Thus, one gets 10. A Y is set down, and a mark is put upon it. One notes in which rank it occurs. We find it in the 7th 905, thus, we enter 7 among the letters of the chords. This entry is called the letter birth. There is an F. One sets it down and adds the 1 of the cycle to 7. The total is 8. One enters it among the chords and gets to S. It is set down and marked with 8. One multiplies 8 by the 3 that is in excess of the 10 of the cycle, because it is the end of 3 quadruple arrangements of the cycles, and gets 24. It is entered into the verse of the poem, and a mark is put upon the number which comes out from it. It is 200, R. Its sign is 96, which is the end of the second 906 cycle of the letter cycles. One picks 2 letters from the chords and writes down the first result. It has a 9. This number always corresponds to the remainder of the letters of the chords, after they have been divided into 12 cycles. It is 9907. Then, one multiplies 9 with the 3 which is in excess of the 90 letters of the chords, and adds to it the 1 which is the remainder in the 12th cycle. Thus, one gets 28. One enters it among the letters of the chords and gets to an aleph. It is set down and marked with 96. If the 7908, which is the cycles of the 90 letters, is multiplied by 4, which is the 3 that is in excess of 90 plus the 1 that is the remainder in the 12th cycle, the result is the same. One goes up 9 on the side of 8 and enters 9 in the table. Thus, one gets to the Zamam letter 2. One multiplies 9 with the number of the surface corresponding to it, namely, 3. 7, the number of the chords with letters, is added to it, and the 1 which is the remainder in the 12th cycle is subtracted. Thus, one gets 33. One enters it into the verse and gets to 5. One puts it down 909, as H, doubles 9, and enters 18 on the front, recto, of the table. One takes the number which is on the surface. It is 1. One enters it among the letters of the chords and gets to an M. It is set down, and a mark is put upon it. Then, one picks 2 letters from the chords and writes down the second result. It has the number 17. The remainder is 5. One goes up on the side of 58 910. 5 is multiplied by the 3 which is in excess of 90. Thus, one gets 15. One adds to it the 1 which is the remainder in the 12th cycle. This is 9. 911. One enters 16 into the verse and gets to 80. It is set down and marked with 64. One adds to 5 the 3 which is in excess of 90, and one adds the 1 which is the remainder in the 12th cycle. This is 39. 912. One enters it on the front, recto, of the table and gets to the Zamam letter 30. One notes what number is on the surface. It is found to be 1. It is set down as aleph, and a mark, indicating that it belongs to the verse of the poem, is put upon it. It also is the 9th from the verse. One enters 9 on the front, recto, of the table and comes to a stop at a 3 in the tens. Therefore, an L, 30, is set down, and a mark is put upon it. Then, one writes down the third result. Its number is 13. The remainder is 1. 1 moves 1 on the side of 8. The 3 which is in excess of 90, and the 1 which is the remainder in the 12th cycle are added to 13. Thus, 1 gets 17, plus the 1 of the result, which gives 18. It is entered among the letters of the chords. It is an L, which is set down. This is the end of the operation. The example in the preceding question was this. We wanted to know whether the Zai-Raja was a modern or an ancient science. 913 The ascendant was in the first degree of Sagittarius. We set down the letters of the chords, the letters of the question, the principles, which are 1. The number of the letters, 93. 2. The cycles of the letters, 7, with the remainder of 9. 3. The ascendant, 1. 4. The ruler of Sagittarius, 4. 5. The greatest cycle, 1. 6. The degrees of the ascendant plus the cycle, 2. 7. Ascendant plus cycle multiplied by the ruler 8. 8. The ruler added to the ascendant 5. The verse of the poem, 914.